So standing here. Yeah, these are good close.
Okay.
For those of you in the meeting house, we can hear you from anywhere in the meeting house if you speak with a, projecting your voice. You don't have to actually approach that microphone. We can hear you from anywhere if you stand and project your voice.
So you can hear me from here.
Very well, Mary.
How about from here?
Yes.
And here?
Very well.
Okay. I think it's approaching 10 o'clock.
Mhm.
I have the privilege of being one of the members of this meeting who has been involved with people on death row for several years. And today we want to tell you about it. There will be a number of us speaking from here, and if anybody is online who has experience with either writing to people on death row or visiting, we would welcome your input as well. We're going to start with a brief history of this meeting's involvement, and Glenna's going to do that.
Okay. So, okay. So I don't want to.
Anyway,
Is that good?
that's fine.
Okay. I'm Glenna Balch. Before the beginning, there were other beginnings. Margaret Hoffman and Eleanor Hammond wrote letters to death row prisoners. There was a group that visited prisoners in Bastrop, Prison Visitation and Support. Several of our people did that, and they met and carpooled to Bastrop FCI and met with prisoners individually. Walter Long began attending worship, and he's a post-conviction death penalty attorney and has been a wonderful resource for all of us. And so that was huge. One day, Deanne Johnson came to worship with 2 letters from that had been routed to her from American Friends Service Committee from Texas inmates on death row who wanted, both wanted pen pals, and one of them also wanted a spiritual advisor. I decided to do, whoops, I need to back up. I'm sorry. For 9 to 10 years, there was a group that were volunteers in the chaplains program for FCI Bastrop. And we grew really close together, and we traveled together in the same car to get there. And we met with a group of prisoners, and we were all in that group. So it was like a worship group, and we mostly did worship sharing, which made it really special. And that's something that I always forget that we can do that's fabulous. And Deanne brought these letters, and since things had gone so well when we were volunteers in the chaplains program at Bastrop, I wasn't too afraid to volunteer to take one of those letters. And so I took Charles Flores' letter. Joanna took Eugene Broxton's letter. And we both started visiting on death row. I was first, and anyway, Walter let it be known that he was representing Napoleon Beasley that Napoleon was his client. Napoleon was an African-American young man, 17 years old, having a successful education, popular, but his family had jobs that white people mostly had, and their friends were white people. And Napoleon wanted to experience having black friends, but he chose the wrong group of black friends. Anyway, there was a carjacking. 3 young black men were part of it, including Napoleon. And the man that owned the car was shot and killed. Napoleon was 17 years old at the time of that event. And Walter worked really hard to save his life. He worked really hard many times. It went on and on. We became really involved in trying to save Napoleon with Walter, as was much of the world. He was really faithful. Amazing. Anyway, so we even had a worship that was dedicated to people filling out a blank book with individual messages to the Board of Pardons and Parole and the governor. And when I was leaving with the blank book to copy it and send it, some of the children wanted to add their messages. That really drew us together. We had a death penalty committee that was a group, small group, and then it became under the Peace and Social Concerns Committee, which never met at that time. I mean, it's meeting now, it's great. When I remember to come for meeting. Anyway, and then we got bigger and bigger, and so we had a standing committee that was the death penalty committee. And then it was decided, that didn't indicate our focus enough. So the name was changed to an abbreviation, WASH, W-A-S-H, which stood for Witness Against State Homicide. Somewhere in this, Jude Miller moved from Dallas to Austin. She had been really involved in Amnesty International in Dallas when she lived there, and she had visited with prisoners on death row for quite a few years before she moved to Austin. So eventually we had Joanna and I and Jude would go, and Mary. Mary was pretty early on with this too. And that's another topic. I'm sorry. I sought to be a spiritual advisor because Charles wanted a spiritual advisor. He didn't want a spiritual advisor who thought he should be killed. So I went to Caring Council, which was known as Oversight back then, several times to see if I could get meeting approval to do that. And the meeting approved eventually. In the committees, we let it be known if people had trouble or had questions, they could always come to one of our meetings. And we had one letter once that, I mean, I have always told people up until a while ago that you need to carefully consider this because you shouldn't stop. And but one of our folks attended one of the meetings with a letter that she got, and she didn't know what to do with, and we read it, and it was so awful that we thought she shouldn't write him anymore. Maybe a letter explaining why she wouldn't do that. I don't tell people anymore that they can't quit. She needed to quit. But that is not our experience as a whole at all. We work together to help prisoners with execution dates, especially when one of us has a relationship with a prisoner. I think Joanna has attended 2 executions, is that right? Jean had attended executions. And we wrote letters to the governor and the Board of Pardons and Parole.
We're going to go over all that.
What?
That some of what we're doing currently, we'll go over some more.
Okay, cool. Okay, thanks. Okay. Thank you very much.
Joanna, you're ready when you're ready.
And which thing?
And we're talking about the letters that you wanted to share some pieces from.
Okay. Okay, am I standing in front of her?
Joanna Vaugh. And I wanted to add one thing, and that is that probably for 13 years, we've been sending holiday cards in the form of postcards to all the inmates on death row. And these are some examples. All of the artwork is donated. Lodima Miller, Paul Pierce, Gary Hicks, Joanna Vaugh, and a friend of Janet McCracken's, and many others. So what these artists have in common is their work has been displayed in every cell on death row in Texas. I'm going to read a few letters that I have received from people that I correspond with. The first person I started corresponding with, I believe, was 1999. Is that right, Glenna?
Yeah.
I mean, we both started at the same time.
I think it was 2000.
Oh, 2000, okay. And I'm still corresponding with, that's Eugene Broxton. And we have started calling each other sister and brother. So he says, "Dear sis, hey, how are you? I really hope everything is going just great there for you and Larry. As for me, I'm coping." He has a hard time. He gets depressed. It's depressing. I mean, being locked up is depressing. I have intended for years to lock myself in the bathroom for 24 hours, and I've never been able to do it. Thank you for your May 9th JPay that I got Monday night, and that day they had shook us down. These shakedowns always depress me. For one thing, they pile all our things up in the middle of the floor like trash, and they just have to take something. They have to take something, and everything that I have came through the mail or from the commissary, meaning it's not illegal. It's not, he's allowed to have it. And they take things anyway that are his, that he's paid for. And, oh, on the 10th, they took everyone's jacket and blanket. That was in May. They thought it was warm enough, but the air conditioning. And yesterday it got so cold in here, I couldn't get comfortable, even though I was fully dressed. I took the sheet that I usually have over the mattress and put it with the other one to cover up to sleep last night. I have on thermal pants and shirt too. Anyway, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this relationship with Eugene, you know, it turned out to be an incredibly important part of my life. When I first started writing, this was my thinking. He's never going to get out. I don't have to worry about him coming to my back door and bothering me, coming to my front door and bothering me. He's never going to get out. Now, honestly and truly, I would like nothing better than for him to come to our house and stay a while and have breakfast and lunch and supper. I'm serious. You know, fingers crossed, I'm daring to hope. Because there have been 3 DNA studies now, all showing that he wasn't there at the scene of the crime, that he was arrested for, convicted of, and sent to death row for. I've got other pen pals who are still living, either still on death row or not on death row. Am I sticking to the topic?
Are you going to also do some people who are looking for a
Yes,
pen pal?
yes, but did you want me to do that separately?
No.
Oh, okay. So this is somebody who's no longer living. And as Glenn has said, I did attend 2 executions. And this is somebody who was executed even though his IQ was 70. The guy who did the testing said, I think he tried to fail the test. Anyway, his name was Robert Ladd. And one thing I learned from him was that if he can wake up every morning and give thanks, for heaven's sakes, you know, why can't I? So he really taught me that. So he's starting out, this is 2007. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made all of us. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Dearest Joe, here is just a few lines to let you know that I was very, very delighted to see and talk with you on Friday. Thank you very much for taking the time to come. I sincerely hope and pray that you and your friends made it home all right. As you may know, I do hold you in my prayers and thoughts. As for myself, I'm doing well at this point, staying strong in the Lord and giving thanks for all of my blessings. As I said my prayers this morning, when I awoke, I gave thanks for the warm and caring friendship you and I have been able to maintain, and I would like to once again thank you so much for caring. So that's just another person. I have lots of letters from him. I asked him before he was executed if he would like his letters donated to the UT archives so that people can learn from these first source materials firsthand what it was like to be on death row. And he said yes, but I haven't quite gotten organized, even though it's been a number of years, to get all of his letters in one place and carry them to UT. I don't honestly know how I got to know Carlos Trevino. He has had 3 or 4 execution dates. He's still alive, and he's a character. He's from San Antonio, and he says, actually, this is the part I wanted to read. This is some time ago. He's not writing to me anymore. I'm not writing to him anymore, but we enjoyed each other as friends for a long time, lots of laughs. He said, how is your walk with God? What have you discovered in your heart? May the Lord keep you in his loving arms always, bless you. Those who deserve love the least need it the most. And then he gave me a scripture to look up, and it was Mark 8:34, which in my Bible says, then he called the people to him, as well as his disciples, and said to them, anyone who wishes to be a follower of mine must leave self behind. He must take up his cross and come with me. Carlos has become a very devout Christian.
Can you give us a couple of examples of people who are looking for pen pals?
Yes, yes, I will do that. Thank you. So I obviously could go on and on and on. Speaking of going on and on and on, Walter's organization, Texas After Violence Program, gives anybody who has been affected by the death penalty the opportunity to speak to a video camera and go on and on and on and on. It's very, very cathartic. And then that's part of their files, so that in the future, when the death penalty is gone, then people can look back and say, oh, that's what it was like. Or even in the present, they can say, oh, that's what it is like. Okay, this is from Garland Harper, number 999560. I don't know Garland Harper, but he replied to our holiday card this year. Dear friends, meeting of Austin, Happy New Year. I'm hoping that the holiday season brought you all great joy and that it lasts throughout the year. Thank you for your holiday greeting. Yes, I would like very much to correspond with someone. I do have a wish in doing so, and I hope it's not a problem. I'm requesting to link with someone who's never had a pen pal on Texas death row. My reason for this is I've had a bad experience in the past corresponding with someone who judged me based on a bad experience that they had prior to me. Texas death row is a very lonely place, and it's different for everyone. I'm looking for someone that's willing to be there for me, allowing me to be human. Take care. That's from Garland Harper, who is one of about 27 people who are still waiting to get a pen pal from us. And this is another one from Gary Green. There are two Gary Greens. This one is Gary D. Green, and he signs himself Green. Friends meeting of Austin. At this time, I'd like to thank you for the Christmas card and well wishes for the holidays. It's nice to be thought of at this time of year. If at all possible, I would like to take you up on your offering of connecting me with a pen pal. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll be 58 years old on January 14th. I'm a divorced father of 4. And then he goes on to tell some amazing stuff, how many children he has, how old they are. And I possess a BS in animal science with emphasis on equine reproduction, nutrition, and management. I was a professional bullfighter, horse trainer, and a CAD programmer operator, certified crane and forklift operator, and a master carpenter. I'm from Godley, Texas, population 656. Thank you, and God bless you for reaching out to me. And one more, I did actually select these to read to you as a variety of different ones. This is Pablo Melendez, and he would like a pen pal age 45 plus. And he says, Quakers, not sure who I should address this to, so the only option you gave me is Quakers, so please forgive me. I did receive your card and want to thank you for your peaceful wishes for the holidays, and would also like to take you up on your offer of link to a pen pal. And if possible, please let it be someone around my age or older. I'm 45. I hope your Christmas was beautiful and peaceful, and this year will be 10 times better than the one we just left behind. Take care and be safe at all times. Peace. Paz.
Besides talking with those of us who have written to people or visited, the other option that is very helpful is there are a series of advices for people on corresponding with death row prisoners. I apologize for not having this up online, but you can get a copy by going to the website, community, groups, death penalty documents. Oh, he's got it. Wonderful, thank you. Would anybody here like a copy? If you would. This is something that's evolved over time. The version I'm handing you was revised last February, this February. It's changed several times in the meantime. It's a good guideline, but the other good guideline is to talk to somebody. And that's all I'm going to say about it. At this point, we have several people here who visit death row and or correspond, and I'm going to invite people to give their brief statement about what that's like for them. After we've had a chance to do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the meeting support for this work, and then Joanna's going to talk again about finding pen pals and getting them. We'll also hope to have time for questions at the end. But the next thing is, if anybody wants to talk about their experience of relationship with somebody on death row. Go for it.
Oh,
Go.
okay.
2 minutes per, please.
Okay. When in the Polonsky unit, things happen sometimes that are remarkable, that don't have to do with the prisoner that you're visiting. Over time, I saw Mr. and Mrs. Schamberger enter the prison. They were holding hands and looked like they were on their honeymoon. And they looked pretty young to have a family member on death row. And it was curious. But we talked and over time. But then one day, they were waiting for the guards to bring Ron, their son Ron, down. And I was waiting for the guards to bring Charles down. And we talked a little bit, and Mr. Schamberger said he has 7 days left. There's 7 days and he's ready to go. And I told him that when there's an execution, that there's a prayer protest vigil at the governor's mansion in Austin, and I would be there at that time. And I did go there, and I prayed to God that he be with Ron. Ron, was really Christ-centered, but I was afraid that, I guess, that God wouldn't be there. Anyway, I begged and demanded that God be there, and I realized that I had just told God what to do. And that's not okay, So I just gave up and just became blank, put my sign down. And I saw a vision of Jesus sitting on a bench next to Ron, and they're getting up together to walk into the execution chamber. This vision was shades of gray, looked like a hologram, and I was looking at the pavement that was also gray. But I saw Jesus, who saw his profile and his leg raised up and then come to standing position. And it was the most beautiful movement that I've ever seen. And so I imagined that Ron's prayers must have been answered for Jesus to be with him. And then I realized that my prayer was answered also. I got to see it from another angle. It's been one of the most important things in my life. And Jesus was executed.
We don't need too much Quakerly silence between. The first time I wrote to someone and visited someone on death row, it was Luis Ramirez. in 2004 and 2005. Then he was executed. Before this, he wrote me a wonderful letter about what it's like to have this, the angel of death at your shoulder and why it should make you a better person. Took me 2 years after that to decide to see anybody else, but since then I've got to know 2 other men on death row.
Would you remind us what you're asking us to do?
I'm asking if anybody has a personal story or a observation about visiting and writing to someone on death row, for them to share it just as a glimpse, a snapshot of what it's been like for you.
After some years of visitation by groups from the meeting, Glenda helped organize a poetry support group, which met to interact with T. Harvey Irvin. And we met maybe eight of us or so, and we left one chair blank for T, and we would read his correspondence and his poetry and discuss and learn from what his experience has been. That group has shrunk in numbers, but it's still going on, I guess, around 9 or 10 years, with monthly getting together and then visitation to visit with T. And I started, once I retired and could take the day, started visiting with T. And it's transformative to meet with him face to face through the glass and experience his wisdom and insight and energy facing the kinds of deprivation that he does, and reading his correspondence on a regular basis back and forth. And that certainly has shifted my thoughts and understanding about what life is like on death row and what our criminal justice system does to people who are sent there.
I wanted to have a chance to tell you a little bit about Kimberly Cargill, as one of the women that's on death row. And I got to know Kimberly because of Kathy Henderson, who passed away after, she was it's a long story, but she passed away. But I got to know her through Kathy, and before she left death row to come back to Travis County. And as a process of getting to know Kimberly, I also got, through Kathy, I got to know Shreya, who's in prison, not on death row. And so I write those 2 women, Kimberly and Shreya. They both loved Kathy and hold her dearly in their hearts, and Kathy uplifted them and help them feel welcomed, cared for. I don't want welcome, but felt cared for by her. And the meeting has been supportive of Kathy through the years. We had some wonderful opportunities here to have it was a press release one time where Sister Helen Prejean came, and that was really wonderful to have her here. And anyway, that's, those have led into new relationships that, would not have had otherwise. And then Howard and I, for a while, went to go visit Walter Sorto. Howard continues to write him. We don't visit at this time, but we are visiting with him through letters. And so that's been our involvement. It's been sometimes there's personalities and things like that. You have some things that you have to work out, with people. There's all people, there's problems sometimes, and you have to. But there's I would say overall, we've been blessed by our experiences by doing it.
Stand here, I think. I may be, I'm certainly one of the newer people that are writing. And transformative, I think, is a pretty good word for it for me. It's been pretty remarkable. I think that the guidelines, I found that it's important for me to read them before each letter that I write, because I have missed a few things. You know, maybe a little bit of a humorous story is I realized after I wrote my very first letter to the other Gary Green, I wrote it on non-white paper, which is not allowed very clearly in here. My only recourse was to quickly write a letter to him via JPAL, which is also read by the security officers, and that letter did happen to get all the way through to Gary, even though it was on the wrong paper. So my point is, read the guidance. It really does have some other things. You know, I think, and also the community of people that help are remarkable. So talk if things come up. And the great joy is this Thursday will be the first time that I get to visit with Gary, so I'm very pleased with that.
I just wanted to make a comment that's going to seem a bit paradoxical, and I hope this isn't the last thing that someone says, because this may not sound as upbeat, but without going into too much detail, I think also one of the things that this experience can do is it can teach us more about our own personal needs for growth and some of our shortcomings in how we relate to the world and to other people. And this can be a hard experience. It has been for me, but I think it's helped to ground me in more awareness of the rest of the world and how I relate to it. And I'll leave it at that. But there are other things. It sounds paradoxical, but it's a growing experience, even if it's painful.
For me, all of the above. It's been transformative in many ways, and I would just add to what Howard is saying, that it teaches me how our society is constructed, and there are good things about our society, but the way we treat many people is not good.
Thank you, friends. Wanted to talk a little about the ways the meeting supports this work. As was mentioned earlier, Walter Long and Deanne Johnson are attorneys within our meeting who work with death row inmates. And Walter has written this pamphlet, which is part of the Pendle Hill series, The Art of Small Resurrections, Surviving the Texas Death Chamber. It's excellent. I recommend it. Our library has several copies. I have these here to look at now, but I want them back. We also do the Christmas cards to all death row inmates and invite, and many people take that as an invitation to seek a pen pal, which is how we end up with 20 still at this time in the year who need them. The meeting has provided support groups and officially nominated us when necessary as spiritual advisors. And we responded to a bunch of individual needs, like having a memorial meeting for someone who died on death row. Like I think at least 2 press conferences in the manner of friends, which is kind of a contradiction in terms, but were held here, like fundraisers. We do write letters to each, before each scheduled execution, to the governor and also to the board of pardons and paroles requesting clemencies. And the meeting pays gas money for those of us who travel. Are there other things I've forgotten in terms of meeting support? Anybody?
One additional benefit that comes from visiting is that you have about 4-hour time frame visiting and with the people traveling to Livingston, going and another trip coming back. So you really get to share and bond with the people in the meeting in ways that you wouldn't see or experience in any other way that I think of. And that certainly is something I look forward to each time we go.
It's definitely a built-in support group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I wanted to mention Judith Filler because she was a member of this meeting and she did start the holiday cards because she had done something like that through Amnesty International in Dallas. When she died of cancer, in her will, she set up the Judith Filler Foundation to end the death penalty in Texas. And it is a going concern. It funds many projects, and Walter and I are both on the board. And I just, it's kind of like the meeting supporting,
Absolutely.
I mean,
If there are no others, I think we can take questions. And we have 10 minutes for that. Are there any questions you'd like to ask me or the rest of this group who all had some of the same experience?
I have a question. I started recently corresponding someone on death row, and I struggled a little bit with how much information about my own life I wanted to disclose, and I realized pretty quickly I am not willing to disclose very much. I dance professionally for Ballet Austin. In some ways, I'm a very sort of publicly available figure, and I'm also engaged to a man, and these are things I realized I don't know this person well enough to share these things. And it was a very natural, there was nothing intrusive even about the letters. I said my usual sort of things like, oh, I work for an arts nonprofit, and where I sort of, I so what I'm doing, but I don't want to share exactly all the information about my life. But of course, then the natural question in the next letter was, so what exactly do you do for the arts nonprofit? What's your actual job there? And I just ignored those questions. And I don't know if that was the right thing to do. And I realized I was sort of pushing away and alienating this person then. And I wonder if I'm sorry, this is kind of a long-winded question. It's more of a situation that I seek guidance with than necessarily a question. But I don't know whether I can or should do this if I'm not willing to be open about my life. So I just would like guidance from people on that.
I see it as a relationship like any other, that you don't instantly tell anybody everything about yourself. And as you get to know this person better, you may feel more comfortable, or you may not. But it would be like with anybody else, I think. At least that's the way I've always been with the 2 people that I have corresponded and visited with.
if they do ask a question that you don't want to answer right now,
Yeah.
how do you ignore it in your next letter, or do you tell them that you're not going to answer that question, or I don't know.
I might, it depends, I guess, but I had a situation with the man that I'm visiting here, and I had a real problem with what he had done. It was emotionally very difficult for me, and I finally told him, you know, I really, and it changed our relationship. It became more equal, or a more more honest. So I would say I think I feel uncomfortable right now revealing everything. I'm very sorry, or whatever. Yeah, I think you can be honest with it. And I mean, my experience with the people that I've visited on death, that they have so much more experience with life than I have. They have had to confront enormous difficulties, and I think their understanding of other people having difficulty about something is quite deep.
Anyone else?
I guess like my question, like in that vein, would be if you do correspond with someone and you do find out like the nature of like what they were unjustly incarcerated for is something you heavily disagree with, or something that really makes you uncomfortable, like I wouldn't want to just give up. I wouldn't want to just give up talking to that person. I would feel like they're still a human being regardless of what happened, and I still don't agree with like the situation they're in regardless of what they've done. How do you get over that hump? And like, how do you make that relationship still functional after that?
I found for me that it was pretty important for me to look into the nature of the crime to start with the relationship. And even after doing that, there's additional information that you end up learning. And sometimes that becomes very difficult. But I think the things that come crashing down on me, rather than even crimes, when I think about the American and Gary Wood, and that's when it really, I don't want to say regardless of the crime, I would say it that way, but no social interaction. So I think it's important to start with. It's important. It was important for me to find out to try to deal with that.
I'm sorry, but I can't.
Go on.
This is Sarah. This is Sarah. I can't really hear what some people are saying.
Sorry, Sarah, we'll have to see if something picked those up rather than recap completely. I was just going to remark that Warren reminded me that it's possible to use the meeting address if you want to write someone and you aren't ready to give them your personal information to the extent of where you live. You just put your name at this address. The last thing we want to do is talk a little bit about taking more pen pals, taking on pen pals if someone is willing to do that. If Joanna has comments she wants to make on that.
We have people who want pen pals. There are more than 20 letters still, and If you want to contact me, I have them generally in the bottom right-hand drawer of my desk. And you don't have to be Quaker to take up a pen pal relationship with one of these people. We do strongly urge you to read the advices, and Walter thinks it's a really good idea to do what Chip did, which was to read the Texas Department of Criminal Justice description of the case that led to the person being incarcerated and on death row. So please contact me. How do you contact me? joannaredfield@gmail.com. I'm not going to give my phone number right now because it'll just get lost. I don't have any way to type it into the chat, sorry.
Any last comment? We need to come to a close.
I did want to make one comment. There's something in Texas